Buenas tardes. Welcome. Thank you so much for your guys' messages and comments about the Katrina videos that I just posted. I was really excited about doing those for you guys. But now, in part 26, we are going to move away from the modern and we are going to go back to our indigenous roots. And we are going to talk about this incredible animal that is so much more than a dog. He is the guardian of souls during Día de Muertos. The Xoloitzcuintle, or Xolo for short, is one of the world's oldest breeds, going back 3,000 years. The Aztecs, the Maya, los Toltecs all believed that these dogs had a sacred mission in helping their owners or their souls crossing a river. Remember, we talked about in a previous video about how souls had to go through 7 challenges in the underworld in order to reach their place of rest. So according to Aztec mythology, when someone died, they had to cross a river called Apanhuaya. And in order to cross the river, they needed the Xolo dog to guide them. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to cross. And oftentimes, the dog, unfortunately, was buried with their owner in order to guarantee that they could cross it in the afterlife. Legend says that the god Xoloitzcuintle, I believe it's how it's pronounced, created the first Xolo from a fragment of the bone of life. Don't ask me where that bone came from because I haven't been able to find that information. So if someone knows, please comment below. But it was to protect humanity. And in life, this hairless, warm dog also had healing powers. Many people with arthritis will lay with these dogs because they produce heat that is comforting for them. And then in addition, after life, they continue to guide and help the souls. When we fast forward to the 20th century, modern times, of course, you also saw the Xolo dog in the movie Coco, Dante, right? And he actually transforms in the movie to another type of animal, which we will talk in a future video. But first, Diego Rivera, we talked about him with the Katrina, right? The way he popularized her. He did the same thing with the Xoloitzcuintle dog because they were being sacrificed and they were almost extinct. So him and his wife Frida had several of these dogs, and they would include them in a lot of their paintings and murals, and that kind of connected it to Día de Muertos. And the other thing to think about, of all the things in Día de Muertos that are based in art, papel picado, los calaveritas de azúcar, pan de muertos, even though it's cooking is still an art. The Katrina, you'll see paper mache Katrinas. All of this is attached to art. The sketches where Katrina came from. Art is needed in schools as you travel throughout all of Mexico. All the different types of artisans that are here. Don't just come to Mexico for the beaches of Cancun, for the clubs in Cabos, to do the glass bottom boat to the Arcos. Come and learn about the culture, learn about each region, what they're known for, their foods and their art. That is the point of traveling and educating yourself on everything that this country has to offer. But again, I digress. I'm just so passionate about traveling in Mexico and how important it is. But the Xoloitzcuintle dog is the national dog of Mexico. And during this time period, you will often see it adorned with cempasúchil, honoring its role in being a spirit animal. We are going to take a trip around Mexico and their events. For part 27, we are going to Aguascalientes, the birthplace of La Katrina. The main festival runs from October 24th to November 2nd, right in Centro Histórico. There's food, art exhibits, altars, a lot of things dedicated to Guadalupe Posada, who we talked about in video 24. There's a ruta del pan de muerto. There is a calavera desfile that takes place on October 31st. Leading up to the festival, there's a bunch of comparsas and smaller processions that happen from Isla San Marcos to the main Centro, which is also the two areas where the biggest feria happens in April and May in Aguascalientes. Then if you want to do a cultural deep dive, visit the Museo de José Guadalupe Posada and you will see some of his original work. And then there is a very moving tradition in Aguascalientes where 5,000 people do a nocturnal procession to El Cerro del Picacho, I think it's called. And it's basically to light the way for the souls. And it just looks like a river of remembrance. So that is just one of many places that you can visit. Images of Cempasúchil, Los Altales, La Catrina are what come to mind for Día de Muertos. But in Michoacán y el Estado de México, there is another breathtaking symbol, and that's the monarch butterfly. In part 28 of our series, I like to call them the immigrant butterfly, and every year millions of monarchs migrate from Canada and the US more than 2,500 miles all the way to Mexico. Now, climate change has been putting their journey at risk, but I had seen earlier this year that they were estimating more were going to return this year, so let's hope that that's the case. And if you want to support their migration, one of the best things you can do is plant milkweed. That is the only plant monarchs lay their eggs on. And here's another fun little detail. Monarchs don't fly in the rain. They wait and they rest until the storm passes, which I think is a life lesson. And their timing, of course, is no coincidence because the monarchs arrive in Michoacán at the end of October, just when families are preparing their altars. And in the Purepecha tradition, which we will talk about in the next video, these butterflies are believed to bring back their loved ones, and their bright orange wings are even compared to the petals of the cempasúchil, guiding them home. So if you are working on your Mexico travel bucket list, and that's why you're following me to see different parts of Mexico, the Monarch Butterfly Reserve in Michoacán is a must. I've had several friends go. It is recognized by the UNESCO World Heritage, which we talked about in our very first video. You do have to hike up the forest, but then you are surrounded by millions of butterflies. I haven't gone yet, but it's definitely on my list. Thank you to Kyle and Isela for sharing these videos with me. We are traveling to Michoacán for part 29. Since we had talked about the monarch butterflies in the previous video, it seemed appropriate to talk about Día de Muertos in Michoacán, and we had talked about the Purepecha people, and they are one of the most important indigenous cultures of Mexico. Before the Spanish arrived, they had a powerful empire, and it was centered around Lake Pátzcuaro, and unlike the Aztecs, they spoke a completely unique language that had no relation to any other indigenous tongue. And today, their traditions are still alive, and they are the people that believe that the monarch butterflies bring the souls of their loved ones back home. Now, most of the activities all across Mexico are going to start around October 25th. For Michoacán, you're going to land in Morelia. I would say spend a day or two there, walk around Centro, see the altars. There's going to be all sorts of things happening. And then Pátzcuaro is about 40 miles from Morelia, but it's going to take about an hour and a half to get there. You could rent a car, do bus, or do a tour guide or a group. You can also, on the way, visit this Panteón. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name. And then there are a few other pueblos that are worth visiting, and this is their list here. All have smaller panteons, cemeteries, worth the visit throughout that week. It doesn't have to be the day of. And then the big day is on November 1st. So November 1st, remember we talked about, is the day of Angelitos. But that night, it is one of the most famous rituals in Mexico. And it happens in the Isla de Janitzio, that lake in Lake Pátzcuaro. And the boats fill with candles and they cross the water at night. And the pictures and videos are just unbelievable. And so they arrive there November 1st. They spend the night at the cemetery because their loved ones arrive, the adults, November 2nd. And this experience in Pátzcuaro is going to be very unique from anything else in Mexico. I always say every state in Mexico tiene su encanto. Every state in Mexico is different. You cannot visit one state and assume that all the states are the same, because that is absolutely not true. Now, a word of warning. The Lake of Pátzcuaro has been having lowering of water levels, and it's in danger of drought, as is many places in the world, unfortunately. So if your bucket list is to go there, go sooner rather than later. And honestly, I would say that about a lot of places in Mexico. If you want more information about Pátzcuaro specifically, tour guides, hospedaje, hit follow, send me a message, and I can connect you to the contacts